Hello, lassies and lads. Welcome to Coaching and a Cup of Tea with Mummabear. I have a very special guest who actually is a repeat offender on the podcast, Diana Gleason, who is not only my most amazeballs bookkeeper and keeps me financially well, she is also my client and has been on retreat twice now. So we're actually going to talk about why do women go on retreats, what happens on retreats, and Diana's going to share a very impactful story that happened to her during retreat, her second retreat, and you're going to want to tune in and listen because it is going to be an incredible episode. Diana, welcome back.
Hi, thanks. You know, one of my favorite podcasts.
And also got to spend the morning with Diana because we had our group call earlier. So we got double doses. So
yeah.
we talked a little bit about what are we going to talk about on this podcast. And I feel like one of the things that would be really helpful to other women listening is why would you go on a retreat, right? It's kind of like, I feel like a lot of people really don't know about retreats or what they are, but they're like intriguing. It's like, tell me about them. Like, what happens there? And we're like, magic. And we don't really know how to explain it. But I feel like of all the people that have been on my retreats, you have a really good way of articulating like the feelings and the thoughts and the takeaways that come from doing things. And so that's what I think would be really helpful to get us started.
Sure. So I will first say that while my growth journey is recorded on podcasts, and I'm pretty open about it, even like on my business Instagram. When I went on my first retreat with you, I didn't tell anyone except for my husband and my sister what I was actually doing. I told them I told all the other people I was going on a business trip. Because you are my client, so it didn't feel like a huge lie. But it was because I felt like people were going to feel a certain way or cast judgment or why does she need to go and do that? Or what are you doing there? Right? So I feel like there's a lot of that around this, which is the importance of this episode, first of all. And the second time I went, I was like, I'm going on retreat. See ya. Like, shouting it from the rooftops, to everybody. And so
huge. I mean, like, let's just pause there for a second, right? Like the perception, 6 months ago of when I go on retreat, I'm going to do this thing, but I don't really want people to know about it. And I would say that is pretty common for a lot of women in terms of doing coaching in the first place. It's like, well, I have a coach, but I don't want to tell you who the coach is or maybe I'm not even going to tell you I have a coach because I want to see how this goes. And I feel like that's probably normal, except for it means a lot of people end up not doing it, right?
Yeah, or I think too, it's like what I found is that when I'm open about my growth journey in personal, and professional growth, there is judgment. Even in before coaching, I had a therapist. I still have a therapist. I have a therapist and a coach. And there's, what do you need to talk about? Well, what do you work through? What's the point? You paid how much money to do that? And what is this person doing for you? You know what I mean? Like there's all of that that's like, it doesn't feel good and it is not in alignment with what I'm doing inside of the coaching space. And so to kind of just avoid all of that, I just keep it to myself sometimes. But now, I started in your mastermind in January, and if you're listening in real time, it's mid-November, and I've been doing the work for 10 months, and my life has changed. You know what I mean? So now it's like, well, I don't really care what anybody thinks about what I have to do to keep myself healthy and to keep my mindset right and to keep me accountable so that I can achieve at a high level and live the life that I've dreamt of living, like I'm actually doing it instead of just wishing I was doing it or being resentful that I wasn't doing it.
It's funny because I did the same thing when I got sober. So I started going to recovery meetings, but I never told anyone I was going to recovery meetings, even though I knew it was helping me. It was something that was beneficial, but at the same time, like I wasn't ready for all of the questions. Right. And I feel like what you've done is you kind of started there, and now you have all of the answers for the questions because you've seen the results of what your action has done and continues to do. And so now it feels like if someone did question, like you have your answers here. It's easy.
Yes, it's very easy. And in this most recent retreat, I missed my flight, full disclosure, and wasn't able to get home the day I was supposed to go home. So I had a full day of silence at the retreat alone with Melissa, also trying to like just, decompress. And
I even cooked for her. Okay, let's not tell the health coach who is coming on later.
And even cooked me a meal. We had a fabulous dinner. And I cried by myself on the dock, just taking in everything that happened for the weekend, and also just like journaling out things that feel very aligned inside of myself that don't feel aligned in my actual life, and why, and what do I need to do to bring the two together. And that is the thing about retreat. When you go on retreat, you are surrounded by like-minded women for 3 full days, having impactful, meaningful conversation, connection. You are doing, real mindset work. And you are just connected in this little bubble of time and space that is just like, it's just magic. It's really just magic. There's no other way to explain it. And
a little like intro before you came on, I was like describing what season 8 on the podcast is going to be like. I was saying the retreat is just magic, and I don't know how to explain it except that it's magic.
I just said the same thing. It is. It's just, the takeaways are just huge. The connections made are huge, and the people that are there with you turn into like soul sisters, because you've been through something together and you've connected on a level that maybe you haven't in your personal life with people that are, in your circle. And it's just really special.
I read this quote earlier, and I'm going to read it because our favorite girl, Mel Robbins, put it on. And
love her.
I know, we love you, Mel Robbins. Okay, so she said, this is what she said, and I feel like it's so aligned with what we're talking about, and it's actually from Brianna West, but she shares it, and it says, slowing down is a sign you're making progress in your life. Rather than rapid, intense acceleration, you're interested in mindful, intentional decision making. Instead of trying to push through all of your body's signals that you're doing too much, growth is when you slow down and start to listen to what they've been trying to say all along. In this stillness and rest, we often find answers we didn't know we were asking for.
Absolutely. And that explains retreat.
So I was like, oh, that's what retreat is. So there's no other eloquent way to say it. Like, that's it. It's slowing down. And like you said, like, even when you get to the end of the 3 days, you're like, that was not just 3 days. Like, in one moment, it feels like it went really fast. But in another moment, it's like, it feels like we did so much in 3 days and so much growth and so much progress, because we slowed everything down. We felt the hard things in our body. We said out loud the painful things that are in our mind that we don't want to say to other people because we're in a safe space. And that's the thing I was thinking about when I was asking you, like, you not wanting to tell people you were going on retreat, like to the listeners who are thinking, oh, I wish I could do that, but I don't want my family to judge you. Well, guess what? You don't have to tell them.
You don't have to tell them where you're going.
eventually you won't give a shit whether they know or not. But in the beginning, just know that that is like so normal. And it's the same with coaching or therapy or getting anything that feels like, oh, is this cheating? Or like, you know, like,
or is it too self-indulgent? That was the other part of it. And you posted something about this on Instagram today, is about actually taking 3 whole days for myself, removing myself from the company I run, my children, my home, my husband, and just pouring into me, and that seeming selfish in some way, when it's really not. It's the only way I can keep on keeping on.
And you know what? As lassies, we suffer from chronic quote unquote selfishness, right? Like this thing that we think that we are somehow selfish, or, you know, like we're doing too much for ourselves. And it's like, I don't know about you, Diana, but I don't really know that many women who are selfish.
Yeah.
Like, where are those women? Because I've yet to meet them. Like the women I know are either women that are in our mastermind or growth mindseted, like you and I are around deliberately and intentionally, or like the moms who are volunteering 50 hours at the school and running and getting donuts for the teachers and doing the appreciation days, or helping a sick parent. Like, I've yet to meet the lazy, self-indulgent mother.
Right. Yeah. That just sits on the couch and eats bonbons. And
I don't know her.
I don't know her either.
And yeah, like we're like consumed with this, like, are we selfish? Is this, ooh, this feels too much? And I hear those things all the time, right? Like I don't want to, I can't do coaching, or I can't do a retreat. Like my husband said, that's too much money on me. My wife said, that's too much money on me. Like it goes both ways, but it's this idea that it's too much to pour in.
To pour in. And really the only way you can give out is if you pour in. And I mean, if there's anything that coaching has taught me, it's that, you know, if I don't fill up me, you know, we just got off a call with Brant Menswar and we were talking about our values and our values showing up every day. Like if I'm not feeding my values every day, then I'm off. And so I need to reevaluate my schedule and see what's going on in my life. Why am I off? What is my non-negotiable that I'm missing right now? You know?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it was an amazing call, and it's so on point with this. Like, if one of the things that is a value for us is growth, go on a retreat. You will not get, like, this is the thing I see, like, it is, we work together for 6 months on Empowered.life. What you will do in 3 days is like, it's just like hard to fathom what it does to jumpstart or push you out of where you are into like something you didn't even know, right? Like that quote just said, like, you didn't even know you needed this. You didn't even know this was a thing. And here you are, like, discovering like, oh, so this is what I'm going to work on for the next 6 months. Yeah.
Or even just a space to like this, you know, last retreat, the first one I did was more of that, like, okay, like, where am I? Take a pause, take a deep breath, like, be without anxiety for 3 days, you know?
I know, I remember you saying that, like, I can breathe, like, I don't feel a tightness on my chest, like, I can't believe that, like, I have to, like, get on a plane to go find
to come here and to feel that. And how do I bring, that was my first retreat, how do I bring a piece of this back? Like, maybe every Sunday my phone stays away. Remember, like, those were the things I was talking about, because I was like, God, I'm like a slave to my email inbox because I'm a busy business owner. And like being able to tell everyone, like, I will have no Wi-Fi, bye, was so empowering. And it gave me some, you know, it gave me something I needed that I brought home with me. This time, like, you know, I had a very busy summer of fire, I will call it, just in my life and my personal life and inside of my business. And I just kept like head down, push through. And this time I needed the space on retreat to process a lot of those emotions that I did not, because I was like in survival mode for several months. And so I was a lot more emotional on this retreat, just because I gave myself space to sort of process through things that I hadn't been, that had just kind of been like shoved down deep. You know, I had space to let them come to the surface, and that was what I really needed this time.
Yeah. We have Jace Johnson, who comes on the mastermind and teaches us about emotions and feelings. And she's going to be coming on in season 8 and talking about that. And I feel like that's really like where the pieces of the puzzle fit together, the mindset piece, right? That we do so much of, that takes so long to like, undo all of those patterns and unlearn them. And then we often can forget about that body piece where we have these emotions and things trapped inside of our body, and there's no space in a regular 24 hours. If you're a working mama bear and you're listening to this and you're like, when is there time to process an emotion, Melissa?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about, girlfriend? Right? Like, retreat is the time. Like, it is literally the time. And it's like, it's funny because we all get kind of antsy for it coming. We're like, it's okay.
It's like, remember what I was telling you? I'm like, it's like Christmas.
For moms.
Retreat feels like Christmas for moms.
Yes, we decided that this is actually better than Christmas because we don't cook ourselves.
Yes.
We have someone that cooks for us. And like, the wrapping of the presents is, get in the car. We're taking you to go do something fun and challenging. Like, clean up. Like, it's the best. But our bodies and our minds sort of get ready for, okay, there's going to be a release. I know I'm going to have space and time to go do this. And that's why, I do solo trips and I do retreats and I host the retreat, because it's like most mama bears, like you, for example, it is you get up, you get the kids to school, you work, then you're trying to be like on your Instagram story last night. Okay, 10-hour day. Now I'm in bed trying to give my kids the emotional attention they need, because we're conscious parents and we're proud of that. But also, like, by the end of the freaking day, I mean, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, there's nothing left. Right? It's gone. Like, there's, like, capiche.
There's not much, and the energy jar is empty.
It's completely and utterly empty, and it is, like, gasping for air. And retreat is an ability to, I don't know, today we talked about, like, paying insurance, right? The idea of doing some of that work is, like, paying our insurance. I feel like that's retreat, right? Yeah. It's like a space to process those big emotions that, like, there's just no space in regular life for.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just 100% accurate.
It would be great if they were, but yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, so one of the things for everybody listening, I love challenges, and I love them because I love to show the lassies that I work with that they are like so amazing and so capable to do anything that they want to do. And we talk about creating evidence all of the time. We're creating evidence for like what we can do in the future. And so doing a challenge is like creating evidence that you could do the next challenge. And so, for example, one of the people on retreat who had a really hard time with things being cold when we went whitewater rafting, like stripped down at the waterfall and like got into the plunge of water, of ice cold water, and everybody was like, could not believe their eyes. But it's because she said, if I had not done the whitewater rafting, I promise you, I would have not done the polar plunge.
Right.
Right? There's like, and so that's why we do it, right? And so you did something that was very hard and scary for you. And I would love if you would share a little bit about, your feelings before it, during, and after, and then kind of what we worked on during it.
Yeah. And I just read so I journaled it that night. So we went zip lining. And I had quite the experience, and I journaled after on retreat because I didn't want to forget all of the things that happened in that experience for me because it was really powerful. And when I read it before I got on this podcast, I got really emotional. And I was like, oh gosh, am I going to cry on the podcast? So if there's a tear, I'm sorry. I apologize now. I won't apologize because it just is what it is. But so, you know, Melissa doesn't let the cat out of the bag on what the challenge is on retreat until like right before you get there, and you're basically signing your life away that if you die on that challenge, it's not anyone's fault but your own. So,
trained lawyer here. Please sign the disclaimer. It is not my fault.
It is not my fault nor the company's fault who is taking us on said adventure. So I'm like, cool, ziplining. That sounds like so much fun. I somehow forgot that I have a fear of heights and that ziplining involves being up very high. Like, it didn't even faze me. I was like, pumped, let's go. Yes, because the last time we did whitewater rafting in April and it was cold, and I do get seasick.
It snowed during whitewater rafting. Okay, it was the coldest day in 50 years in South Carolina. Okay, so
yes.
That's, you know, just
not there was snow in the white. Yeah, there was, and I took Dramamine because I get motion sickness. So there were things, but like I had handled them, and we went, and I had a great time, and like I felt so good that, you know, after we did it. So I was just like, yeah, whatever Melissa signs up for, I'm gonna have that same experience. So party on, let's go. So we get there and we do this ground training, and I'm still, yeah, suit me up. Okay, this is how it's going to work. I'm not even thinking that I'm going to feel anything about heights at all. And so we climb up to the first landing, and it's large, and, you know, they kind of have us like clipped in, and we're like waiting to go. And all of a sudden, like the waiting started sounding something inside of me where I'm like, we're like all waiting on this platform and it's a little high. I feel a little bit uncomfortable, but then, you know, they shoot you off the zip line and it's like exhilarating and you're like, wow, that's right. And you get back on your phone. I'm like, okay, now we're going to climb up this little tiny thing onto this little tiny platform and we're all going to wait for everybody to get there. And then you're going to have to wait for each person to go. And that is when I had a full-blown panic attack because I was up on this little tiny platform where there was there were like 12 of us.
For the listener, she's not being dramatic. And I know some people sometimes use panic attacks as like a dramatic, like I had a feel like she had a legit panic attack at the top of this small, tiny podium.
Yes. I mean, it was full-blown on display for the 12 people we were with, 4 of them being strangers not in our group. And I immediately, what it was that set it off was the fear of height. And the platform was really small. So as you peered over the edge, and psychologically, you know, I'm clipped in, I can't fall, but the feeling of seeing that, like plunged to my death, it was like the panic inside of me took over. I was sweating. I was nauseous. I felt like I was holding on to the tree that was in the middle of the platform. I couldn't move. My knees felt weak. And all I was thinking was like, I might throw up all over everyone. Because that's how when I have a panic attack, that's what sometimes even does full blown happen.
And you wanted to go back down. You were like,
and so I asked the guide immediately. I said, if I need to go down, this is like, we haven't even gone across the second line. We're going to do 12 and we're going to be up for 3 hours. And all of a sudden I'm like, if I need to go down like now, like, is there a way? And he was very calm because clearly I was not his first rodeo on being scared at ziplining, and he was like, you have a choice every single time. If you want to go down, I can get you down at any point. Let's just take it one by one, is what he said, one at a time. And it was like a roller coaster. I managed. I went across to the next one, and then I felt like I was going to be, and the actual ziplining part was like exhilarating. That was the release for me. I'd be like, ah! And then I'd get on the platform and you have to wait again up really high. And then I'd feel like I was going to be sick. And I was crying.
Tiny. The platforms were so tiny. and we were like packed in like sardines. I mean, it was like up close and comfortable.
It was. And and I was crying. Like the tears were just coming out of me. It was like full blown panic attack. And so one of my friends was on retreat with us, Amara, and she started when we would get to, because I didn't feel safe. So clearly when you don't feel safe and you're a person with anxiety and you get panic attacks, that's what happens. If you don't feel safe, the panic comes on. And so she was like bear hugging me from behind on the platforms. As I was holding onto the tree, she was holding me. And that was like kind of getting me through, but I was also just kept thinking the nausea was so bad that I was going to get sick and that was going to be the end. And so we would just go one by one. And probably on like number 4-ish, I asked the guide to tell me why we were safe. Yeah. And I thought if I knew we were safe, he had already explained it all down below on the ground school when I was pumped to go ziplining. But now in the moment, I was like, reassure me why I am safe up here, because maybe if I can like think myself through this and know that I'm safe, even though we're this high, that I will be okay. And Melissa stopped me in that moment and said, you cannot like intellectualize yourself out of this fear. Basically, like there's no thoughts that you can have or redirect that are going to calm the panic that's happening inside of your body. You need to go to where you're feeling the panic and calm it down.
Because I think
and I was like,
you were trying to have a thinking solution to like a feeling problem, right? And it was like, you have, and we do in Empowered Life, a lot of mindset work, right? Because we know if we can get rid of these inner critics or people pleasing or codependency, we can create better thoughts and better results. But then there are instances like this where there is nothing that guy can say. There is nothing I can say. Like it is literally all in the body.
Yeah. It was all in my body. It was. And it was taking over everything. And then when you said that, I think I cried some more and I breathed. and we went on to the next one. And as the turn of like, when we got to halfway, I was able to get inside of my body and calm it down. And I will tell you, as a person who has suffered from panic attacks since I was 20, and I'm 39, so 19 years, like diagnosed panic disorder at 22. That was the first time I've ever been able to control a panic attack in that way. Ever. So it was like, and we're in the middle of this excursion. So you would just have to keep going and you're with all the people. But now as we turned and I started to calm it and we're on the second half, it started to get really empowering because I'm like, I'm standing up here and I don't have that feeling anymore. You know what I mean? And then it just started to feel so good. And Amara, she was still trying to hug me. And then I was like, okay, I think I don't need you to do that anymore. I think I feel better. Like I'm okay, and what was like, so it was really cool for me, obviously, like when we were done and we got off and we were on the ground, like it was like, whew, like, oh my gosh, liberating. You know what I mean? Like what just happened up there was like, life-changing. I couldn't wait to like be able to tell my husband like what I did. And also the women around me, like when we were finished, just hugging me, they literally were with me through the whole process, like hugging me, telling me how proud they were, like telling me how inspirational that was for them to watch and witness, because I was crying, I was almost vomiting, I was breathing. It was a lot. So they all sort of like went on that journey with me. And yeah, it was really meaningful.
I feel like that what you did was like you found the safety in your body. Like we're gonna talk a little bit that you and I have learned about recently. But you found that safety in your body, but you also like went through the emotions, right? And Jace Johnson has been helping us sort of understand like the body will never lie to us. Your body was letting you know, listen, Lassie, I'm not comfortable with this. Like this is not, I do not feel safe. And there's nothing, the body and the mind was disconnected, and you needed to create the safety in your body to say, hey, like, it's okay, right? Like, it's okay. And that's exactly what you did. Like, I'm having a hard time with this. I feel it. I'm creating safety in my body. I am safe. I'm okay. And your body, not intellectually. And then you move through it. And it was just like, I think it's really difficult on a podcast to explain how completely like life-changing it was just watching you do it, like watching you work through it from panic attack in the beginning to needing to be held to I'm safe to like, you know, don't want to use the F word, but like, yes, like I did this. Like it was so beautiful. And that's like, I don't know, that encompasses retreat. Like everybody has a moment. Like you had your moment very high up in the sky in the trees. Like other people had it up beside the fireside. Some had it on the dock. Some had it, you know, like during exercises when we're holding hands and we're saying things that aren't nice to each other. Like everybody has like a moment where they just sort of push into it. But yours was just, you know, it was the top of on a very tiny platform in South Carolina up in the trees.
Yes.
But one of the things we're going to be talking about this season, I'm going to have Dr. Russ Kennedy come on, who is like the anxiety expert. He was recently on Mel Robbins' podcast, and I'll link up their interview. But in his book, Anxiety Prescription, like basically he talks about finding that alarm in your body, which alarm is essentially the anxiety in the body, that feeling of, you know, heart palpitations or tightness or sweating, whatever it is in your body, and how that is the alarm, and how if you can sort of let that know that you're safe, you can move through the anxiety. And, I don't know. It's like amazing to read and to listen to that, but to actually see you use it like in real time, like is like mind blowing.
Yeah. And I mean, full disclosure, that episode had dropped with Dr. Kennedy and Mel Robbins right before we went on retreat. And I had listened to it, and it was a totally new thought process. Like I said, I've been in cognitive behavioral therapy for 3.5 years, trying to squash anxiety and panic. And this was the first time I had heard somebody talk about it. He talks about a neck down approach. Mm-hmm. And I immediately sent it to Melissa, but I was like, you need to listen to this. I was like, my mind was blown. And then she listened to it, and then we got the book. And then we get on retreat, and she was like, put it right into action on me. Even because, like, do you think I was thinking about Mel Robbins' podcast up in the retreat? Heck no. But Melissa brought the toolbox and was able to help me apply that, right? And man, did it work.
It really does. And now, and I've been, you know, messaging with Dr. Russ Kennedy and telling him, you know, how it's working in these coaching clients and in these calls we're having, and very, very, very impactful. So if you're listening to this episode, we think you should go on retreats, and also we feel like you should buy Anxiety Prescription by Dr. Russ Kennedy, and also listen to Mel Robbins' podcast. So these are the things we think. These are our thoughts.
Those are our thoughts. Absolutely.
All right. Anything else we're going to wrap up? I like to try to keep these as short as we can, but with lots of aha moments and lots of mic drops. So we've told them why they should go on retreat, some of the things that happen on retreat. What closing thoughts do you have for someone who's maybe listening saying, ooh, I wish I could be brave enough to go on a retreat like Diana Gleason?
Just do it. Just do it. Is it an investment in yourself? Yes. Is it worth every penny? Yes. You will come home different, and you will show up better for yourself and for the people that you love most in your life if you take the time to do the work on you. And for some people, retreat is a starting place. And for other people, it's just a continuing place. But either way, just having some space that is not just a 1 hour coaching call or a 1 hour therapy session, that is like 3 days of mindfulness and mindset work and space to process and do something hard and create the evidence that you can do hard things. Like it's life changing. And I wish more people would do it, because I think we'd have better humans walking around the planet if they did.
I think the cool thing also is when you go back and you have an amazing marriage, and it's such an example to me, but that your husband, Matt, is like, all right, so what are your post-its from this? And the family can feel the difference. And I have other clients that say the same thing. My son said, well, you should go on those retreats more, because you're just you're calmer and nicer. And, even my teacher, I had one person go on retreat, and their son's teacher called them and said, hey, is anything different at home? Because just really noticed a big difference in his behavioral changes. And he mentioned you went on some retreat, and and it's just the people around you will notice the difference.
Yeah. And I will say that too, because what I hear a lot of is, again, the price. People are always like, it's how much, you went and spent how much money for a weekend? And I'm like, it's the same amount as a vacation, first of all. And the thing is my husband doesn't blink an eye at the money I spend on my growth work, because it does impact our family. I always say Matt's a better human than I am, and he doesn't have to do as much work as me to be his best self. Praise Matt. But I do. And he sees that, and he sees it in our marriage, and he sees it with my kids, and he sees it in my business. And so he's all for it. Make the money, to spend the money, to do whatever you have to do to keep on, and I think that the investment piece of it is important.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's listening, Diana, and they don't have a mat? They have what my kids call a Kevin. Do you know what a Kevin is?
Oh,
Kevin is like Karen. That's what my children tell me. By the way, for the listeners, my boys are 9 and 11, and they tell me all the cool words. So apparently a Kevin is the male version, like Karen.
Like a Karen. Yeah. So if you're married to a Kevin and he is not Matt, number one, how do you say it in the nicest way possible? What do you want? How important is your happiness, and what do you think you need to have peace and happiness in your life? And if it is a retreat, then save your dollars and invest it in yourself. And who cares what Kevin thinks? Because when you get home, Kevin will be thankful that you went.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Number one, save, right? If you have to save. I had to save for my first retreat. Number two, I think the other thing that many lassies struggle with is if their spouse or partner doesn't agree with something they're doing or working on, it instantly means it doesn't happen. And I would say that maybe you should look at that, right? Maybe that something you look at to say, do I have, what was the thing that Brant said to us early? Responsibility without
versus authority.
So it's like you can have responsibility in your life, but if you don't have authority in your life, like how do you figure out getting authority in your life? So if you have to save. If you really want to go on it, like maybe look at, do I want to have authority in my life?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's, it's your life to live and you only get one. And so
you do. Yellow.
That's me. I'm trying not to wait till retirement to live my best life. I want to live it every single day.
Oh no. Like that is like, if I go to my grave and my gravestone says something to the effect that made women enjoy their life today and not wait for retirement, I will be a happy lassie. Like 100%. No, we find joy every single day. We have to.
100%.
All right, Lassie, I love you so much. That was amazing. And I know everybody got so much from listening to you. I will tag all of your things. If you need a bookkeeper, I'm just going to plug you. She will probably die for me doing this, but like, honestly, she's transformed my business. So if you need a bookkeeper, an online bookkeeper, how cool is that? Like where everything is done online. I'm going to tag like all her things. She also has like the most adorable Instagram and you should definitely follow her.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, Lassie. Thank you.
You're welcome.